Hi, I am Sophia. Welcome to True Payback, where story hits different. Hit subscribe. Let's dive in.
The Christmas lights were still blinking when my father called the meeting to order. That is not a metaphor. He actually said those words, called the meeting to order, at a dining room table decorated with a poinsettia centerpiece and my mother's good china. The kind of language he used at his accounting firm. The kind of language that was supposed to signal seriousness, authority, finality. He had even printed an agenda. I saw it folded under his bread plate and I recognized the font. Times New Roman 12 point. The same font he used for quarterly reports. I was 31 years old and my father had printed an agenda to discuss discontinuing my medical care. There were 8 people at that table. Dad at the head. Mom to his left. My brother Garrett, 34, who had flown in from Phoenix specifically for this. My sister-in-law Dana, who had not been asked to come but had inserted herself anyway. My Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, who had driven 4 hours and kept saying she was only here to support the family. My cousin Brent, who had no medical opinions of any kind but apparently had strong feelings about what he called my victim mentality. My mother's college friend, introduced to me 40 minutes earlier as Richard, a family friend your mom wanted to include. And me. My name is Claire. I have complex regional pain syndrome, also called CRPS, and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome called POTS. Both are real, both are documented, both have been managed by Dr. Anita Shenoy at the University Medical Center for 4 years. CRPS affects my left leg and lower back. On bad days, the pain registers at levels that burn specialists typically associate with patients who have active tissue damage. On good days, I function carefully, deliberately within the careful architecture of medication, pacing and management that Dr. Shenoy and I have built together. My family's interpretation was different. Their interpretation was that I had discovered, sometime around age 27, that being sick was easier than being productive, and that I had been milking that discovery ever since. The agenda, as my father explained it, had 3 items. First, a review of what the family had spent supporting my medical care over the past 4 years. He had a number ready. $38,000 across medications, specialist co-pays, 2 hospitalizations, and what he called lifestyle accommodations, which meant the shower chair, the medication organizer, the parking placard renewals, and the handicapped parking fees at the lot near my apartment that they had helped cover for 18 months before I found a closer space. Second, a presentation of evidence that my condition was exaggerated or fabricated. Garrett had prepared this portion. He had printed screenshots. He had apparently been doing research. Third, the vote. I had known something was coming. My mother had called me 2 weeks before Christmas and told me the family wanted to have a conversation about the path forward. She had used a gentle voice that I had learned over 31 years, meant the opposite of gentle. I had asked Dr. Shenoy about it at my appointment the following Tuesday. I had told her what my mother said, and I had watched her expression change in a way that she tried to control and didn't quite manage. Claire, she had said carefully, I want you to know that whatever happens in that conversation, your documentation is complete, your diagnoses are not in question, and I am available by phone. She had also asked quietly whether I wanted her to refer my case to the patient advocacy office. I had said I wasn't sure yet. Oh, sure now. My father finished his introduction and folded his hands on the table. The floor is yours, Garrett. Garrett had put together a slideshow. He had connected his laptop to the television above the fireplace, the one that usually played the Yule log channel on Christmas Eve. The Yule log was gone. In its place was a PowerPoint presentation with a dark blue background and white text. The title slide read, A Concerned Family's Review, Claire's Medical Claims versus Observable Reality. I looked at it for a long time. Then I looked at my hands in my lap. The first slide was a timeline. Garrett had gone back through 4 years of my medical history as he understood it, which is to say as filtered through family conversations, holiday visits, and what I had chosen to share, which was never very much. He had noted every time I had attended a family event without visible difficulty. Christmas 2021, he pointed out, I had walked from the car to the front door without my cane. Easter 2022, I had carried a dish from the kitchen to the table. Thanksgiving 2022, I had stood in the kitchen with my mother for 40 minutes. He presented these moments as contradictions. He did not know because I had not told him, That Christmas 2021 I had taken a double dose of my breakthrough pain medication and paid for that decision with 3 days in bed. He did not know that Easter 2022 I had carried one dish 6 feet because my mother had asked me to and I did not have the energy to explain why I shouldn't. He did not know that Thanksgiving 2022 I had stood in that kitchen and gripped the counter the entire time and that after everyone left I had sat on the floor for 40 minutes because sitting in a chair was too much. He presented what he saw. He had not been looking for the rest. The second slide was a collection of screenshots from my social media. There I was at a friend's birthday dinner, smiling, upright, holding a glass of wine. There I was at a farmer's market, photographed from a distance, walking between stalls. There I was at my friend Maya's backyard barbecue, standing near a grill, laughing at something. Garrett pointed to each image with the quiet confidence of a man who believed he had found something. He had not found anything. He had found 4 photographs taken on 4 carefully chosen days out of approximately 1,460 days, which was how many days had passed since my diagnosis. He had found the 4 days I had documented publicly, the 4 days I had felt well enough to be somewhere, the 4 days that existed precisely because on most of the other days I had not left my apartment. She posts these, Garrett said, turning to the table. She is out there living a full life. And then she calls Mom crying about her medications. Aunt Patricia shook her head slowly. It's very confusing for all of us. Cousin Brent said, classic victim behavior, honestly. Dana, my sister-in-law, said nothing but pressed her lips together in a way that communicated everything. The man my mother had introduced as Richard had not said a word. He was sitting 3 chairs down from me to my right, and he was watching Garrett's presentation with an expression I could not read. He was perhaps 60, with the kind of careful stillness that some people develop when they spend a long time listening professionally. He had declined wine at the start of dinner. He had asked me quietly when we were introduced how I was feeling today. Not in the vague social way. In the specific way. With a small pause after, as if he was actually waiting for an answer. I had said, today is moderate. Tomorrow will be harder. He had nodded once. Not with pity. With the acknowledgement of someone who understood what that sentence meant. The third slide was Garrett's conclusion. He had bulleted it. Claire's diagnosed conditions cannot be verified through observable behavior. Claire's conditions have not prevented social activity when motivated. Claire's conditions have consistently worsened when family financial support is available and improved when support is withdrawn. Conclusion. The family's continued funding of unverified medical claims is enabling behavior that is harming Claire's long-term development and independence. He closed the laptop with a quiet click. My father thanked him. My mother was looking at the centerpiece. My aunt was nodding. Brent was nodding. Dana had her arms crossed. My father looked at me. Do you want to respond before we move to the vote? I had prepared for this moment. I had sat in my apartment 3 nights before Christmas and written out everything I wanted to say. I had written about the thermographic imaging that confirmed my CRPS diagnosis. I had written about the tilt table test that confirmed my POTS. I had written about the peer-reviewed literature on invisible disability and the well-documented phenomenon of episodic conditions being misread as fabricated conditions. I had written 5 pages. I looked at my father's face and at Garrett's face and at my aunt and at Brent, and I understood with a clarity that felt almost calm that none of those 5 pages would matter. They had already decided. The presentation was not an inquiry. It was a formality. No, I said. I don't think I will. My father nodded as if this confirmed something. All right. Then let's move to the vote. The motion, my father said, straightening in his chair, is as follows. Effective January 1st, the family collectively discontinues all financial contributions to Claire's medical expenses, including medication subsidies, specialist co-payments and any associated costs. All in favor? He raised his hand first. My mother raised hers without looking at me. Garrett, Dana, Aunt Patricia, Brent. 6 hands. Every hand at the table except mine. My father looked at me. Opposed. I raised my hand. Motion carries, he said and reached for his wine glass. The table seemed to exhale. Garrett closed his laptop. Dana unfolded her arms. My aunt said, I think this is the right thing, Claire, really for everyone. Brent was already reaching for the bread basket. And then the man named Richard set his glass down. He set it down carefully without hurry, the way you set something down when you are about to speak and you want your hands free. The small sound of glass on tablecloth was quiet, but something about the deliberateness of it moved through the room. Everyone looked at him. "I should clarify who I am," he said. His voice was even. Not loud. Not angry. The voice of someone who did not need volume. "Your mother was kind to invite me tonight and I've appreciated the dinner. But I was not fully introduced, and given what I've just witnessed, that needs to change." My mother's face shifted. "My name is Dr. Richard Calloway. I am a practicing internist and I currently serve on the State Medical Board's Patient Advocacy and Standards Committee. I've held that position for 11 years. He looked at my father. "6 months ago, a neglect complaint was filed with our office regarding the medical management of a dependent adult in this state. I was assigned as the reviewing officer. The complaint included documentation provided by the patient's treating physician." The bread basket stopped moving. "I was invited to this dinner," Dr. Calloway continued, "by your wife, who contacted our office 2 weeks ago expressing concern about a planned family intervention regarding her daughter's medical care. She asked if someone from our office could be present. I agreed." He looked at my mother. "Margaret, I believe you have something you'd like to say." Everyone turned to my mother. My mother, who had raised her hand. My mother, who had not looked at me. My mother, who had called the office of the State Medical Board 2 weeks before Christmas and asked them to send someone. Her eyes met mine across the table. They were wet. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry, Claire. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know what else to do." The room was completely silent. My father was the first to recover. "Richard, Dr. Calloway, I don't know what Margaret told your office, but this is a private family matter. Claire is an adult. We are not her guardians. We have every right to make decisions about our own finances." "You do," Dr. Calloway said. "That's correct. Financial decisions are yours to make." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and withdrew a folded document. He unfolded it without rushing. "What I'm here about is not your finances. It's a separate matter." He placed the document on the table. "This is a summary of the complaint filed with our office. It documents a pattern of behavior over approximately 3 years. Specifically, repeated denial of a dependent family member's medical reality in contexts where that denial resulted in delayed treatment. 2 emergency hospitalizations that the patient's treating physician has documented as directly connected to medication interruptions caused by family pressure to discontinue prescriptions. 1 incident in which a family member contacted Claire's pharmacy and falsely represented himself as a legal guardian in an attempt to block a prescription refill." Garrett's face changed. Dr. Calloway did not look at him. He kept his eyes on the document. "That last item is not a civil matter. Impersonating a legal guardian to a licensed pharmacy is a criminal offense in this state. Our office has referred that specific incident to the state attorney's office. That referral was made 4 months ago." "I didn't," Garrett started. "You called Walgreens on March 14th of this year," Dr. Calloway said, "identified yourself as Claire's legal guardian, and stated that her controlled substance prescription was being fraudulently obtained and should be flagged for investigation." He looked up. "The pharmacist documented the call. The pharmacy's legal team contacted our office when they received Dr. Shenoy's subsequent inquiry. We have the call record." Dana had pushed her chair back slightly from the table. My father said, "You can't come into someone's home and—" "I was invited," Dr. Calloway said simply. "And I want to be precise about what I am and am not doing. I am not here to make arrests. I am not law enforcement. I am here as a reviewing officer to gather observational information and to ensure that the patient at the center of this complaint is aware of her rights and the resources available to her." He looked at me. "Claire, are you aware that you have the right to file a formal protective complaint with the state board, independent of the criminal referral already made regarding the pharmacy incident?" I had not known that. I shook my head. "You do. Dr. Shenoy filed the initial complaint on your behalf with your signed authorization, which you provided at your appointment 4 weeks ago." He paused. "You may not have fully understood at the time what that authorization covered. It covered this. I thought about that appointment. I thought about the form Dr. Shenoy had asked me to sign. She had explained it carefully and I had been in a flare that day and I had trusted her and signed. She had been building this for months. Dr. Calloway turned back to the table. What I witnessed tonight. A family vote to discontinue a disabled family member's access to prescribed medical care, combined with a presentation designed to publicly delegitimize her documented diagnosis, will be included in my observational report. That report goes to the full committee within 30 days. The committee determines whether a formal finding of medical neglect is warranted. Aunt Patricia said very quietly, I didn't know about any of this. Garrett told us she was. I understand, Dr. Calloway said. Your presence tonight will be noted as peripheral. The committee's focus is on primary decision-makers. He looked at my father. Then at Garrett. I would strongly suggest that both of you consult legal counsel before the new year. Not as a threat. As a practical recommendation. Brent had not said a word since Dr. Calloway introduced himself. He was staring at the centerpiece poinsettia as if it had become extremely interesting. Dana said almost to herself, I told you not to do the pharmacy thing. Garrett turned to her. She looked away. My mother came to find me 20 minutes later. I had excused myself from the table and gone to sit in the small sunroom off the back of the house, the one with the wicker furniture and the dead fern my mother kept meaning to replace. I sat in the chair nearest the window with my heating pad. I had brought it in my bag the way I always brought it, folded into a zippered pouch, pressed against my left side. She stood in the doorway for a moment before she came in. I should have said something years ago, she said. She didn't sit. She stood near the dead fern, her arms wrapped around herself. I believed them for a while. I want you to know I believed it, Claire. And then about a year ago I stopped believing it and I didn't know how to say that out loud. It was easier to, I went along. Her voice cracked. I went along and you went to the hospital twice and I told myself it wasn't connected. It was connected, I said. I know. She pressed her fingers against her mouth for a moment. Dr. Shenoy called me. In October. She didn't breach anything. She called me and asked if I would be willing to speak with someone from the board's office. He said she was worried about you. She said she'd been worried for a long time. She paused. She was very kind. She could have been much less kind. I thought about Dr. Shenoy at her desk on the phone with my mother, choosing her words carefully. Trying to build a bridge to the one person at that table who might be reachable. I didn't know she was going to be this thorough, my mother said. I didn't know about Garrett and the pharmacy. Did you know he called them? Pause. I suspected. I didn't ask. That was wrong. We sat with that for a while. I don't know what happens next, I said. I don't know how to do this with our family. I don't either, she said honestly. But I'm not raising my hand against you again. That's the only thing I know for certain tonight. It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough. But it was real and I recognized it as real and I filed it away as the first true thing she had said to me in a very long time. Dr. Calloway found me in the sunroom before he left. He knocked on the doorframe even though the door was open. He had his jacket back on and his document folded in his breast pocket. He looked like a man who had done this before. Walked into a family gathering that was not what it appeared and walked out carrying something that would matter. I want to make sure you have what you need before I go, he said. He sat across from me and went through it methodically. The committee timeline. What the formal complaint process looked like from here. The difference between the criminal referral for the pharmacy incident, which was out of his hands and would proceed independently, and the medical neglect finding, which was within the board's jurisdiction and would take 30 to 90 days. He told me that Dr. Shenoy's documentation was, in his assessment, thorough and compelling. He told me that I should not be surprised if I received correspondence from the state attorney's office in the next several weeks regarding the pharmacy matter, and that I had the right to provide a victim impact statement if charges were filed. He told me that he had seen a great many cases that looked like mine. He said it without elaboration or pity as a statement of fact, the way doctors often say the true hard things. The most common outcome, he said, when a family has operated this way for several years, is that the formal process creates distance that the patient eventually finds clarifying. Not immediately. Immediately it's usually painful. He looked at me steadily. But the gaslighting stops. That part stops. It has to once there's a formal record. I hadn't heard anyone use that word out loud, gaslighting, in relation to my own situation. I had thought it many times. My therapist had said it carefully in a session once. But hearing a man from the state medical board say it in my mother's sunroom on Christmas Eve made something settle in my chest. "Thank you," I said, "for coming. Your mother made the right call," he said. "And Dr. Shenoy has been advocating for you for a long time. Make sure she knows this went the way it did." He left. I heard him say goodbye in the hallway, heard the front door, heard his car on the gravel. In the dining room, the table had gone quiet in a different way than it had been quiet before. Before, it had been the quiet of people congratulating themselves. Now it was the quiet of people sitting with consequences. My father called me on December 27th. He did not apologize. My father was not, at his core, a man who apologized. What he did was call and say in a controlled voice that he had spoken with an attorney. That the attorney had advised him to have no further discussions about Claire's medical situation or the family's role in it. That he was calling simply to let me know that he and my mother would be paying my January medical expenses as previously arranged, and that any further arrangements would be discussed at a later date. I said, "I heard you, Dad." There was a long silence. "I didn't know about the pharmacy," he said. "One time." "Hey," I said. Another silence. "Your grandmother had something similar," he said. "What you have? Or something like it. She called it her bad leg. We all thought she was being dramatic." He stopped. "She died thinking her own family didn't believe her." I didn't say anything. "I'm not saying that excuses anything," he said. He stopped again. "I'm just saying that." It was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get, and I knew it, and I chose to receive it as what it was rather than what it wasn't. "I'll call you in January," I said. "After the holidays." The pharmacy incident moved quickly. Garrett was contacted by the state attorney's office in the second week of January. He was ultimately charged with 1 count of fraudulent impersonation and 1 count of interference with a patient's medical care, both misdemeanors. His attorney negotiated a plea arrangement that resulted in 2 years of supervised probation, a fine, and a requirement to complete a court-mandated education program on patient rights and disability law. Dana filed for divorce in February. I don't know if the charges were the reason or only part of the reason. I suspect there were other reasons that had nothing to do with me. The State Medical Board's committee issued a formal finding in March. The finding documented a pattern of medical neglect and directed that a formal notation be placed in my family's record with the state's Adult Protective Services Division. It was not a criminal finding. It was a civil administrative finding. My father's attorney described it in a letter I received a copy of as a non-punitive notation. What it actually was, Dr. Calloway explained to me in a follow-up call, was a permanent record. Something that existed now in a place where it could not be argued away. Cousin Brent sent me a text in January that said only, "Hey, I should not have been there and I should not have raised my hand. That was wrong. Take care of yourself." I did not respond immediately. I read it several times over several days. It was not much. It was something. Aunt Patricia called my mother and not me, which told me everything I needed to know about who she had been worried about the whole time. Dr. Shenoy's office sent me my appointment reminder for February like always. The automated text reminder. "You have an appointment with Dr. Shenoy on February 6th at 2 p.m. I arrived on time. I sat in the chair across from her desk. She had the same calm face she always had, the one that had taken me a full year to learn to trust. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Moderate," I said. "Mostly moderate." She nodded. She made a note. We went through my symptoms, my medication response, the adjustments we had talked about last time. We were 10 minutes into the appointment before I said, "I know what you did." She looked up. "The complaint. The board. Inviting my mother to contact Dr. Calloway's office." I looked at her. "All of it." She set down her pen. "I should have told you more explicitly what I was initiating. I want to apologize for that. You deserve to understand the full scope. I'm not here to tell you it was wrong," I said. "I'm here to tell you that you did something that I didn't know how to do for myself." I paused. "I've been managing this condition for 4 years and I've been managing my family's reaction to this condition for 4 years, and I was so tired of both of them that I had stopped being able to tell them apart. I didn't know I was allowed to push back." Dr. Shenoy was quiet for a moment. "You were always allowed," she said. I was waiting for the right moment to show you that. The Christmas dinner was the right moment? Something shifted in her expression. Your mother called me crying in October. That was the right moment. I thought about my mother crying on the phone to my doctor. I thought about the years of my mother going along, saying nothing, raising her hand. I thought about how long it must have taken her to make that call and how much it must have cost her. She loves you, Dr. Shenoy said. She was afraid of them. Those two things were both true. I knew that. I was still figuring out what to do with it. What I did over the following months was build something quieter. My father and I spoke on the phone monthly. Short calls, practical topics, carefully navigated. My mother came to visit in April and she sat with me while I rested in the afternoon, which is something she had never done before. Just sat without suggesting I try harder or push through or focus on getting better, just sat beside me with her book while I slept. It was the most comfortable I had been in her presence in years. Garrett and I did not speak. That was his choice and I respected it, and I did not miss him in the way I had expected to miss him. I had spent so long anticipating his presence, managing his opinions, defending myself against his assessments, that his absence turned out to feel less like loss and more like the end of something exhausting. I found in the months that followed that Christmas dinner that my flares were less frequent. My pain management specialist noted it at my June appointment. Your stress markers are down, she said, looking at my chart. Something changed. Yes, I said. Good change or hard change? Both, I said. It was both. The following Christmas, there were 5 people at my mother's table. Me, my mother, my father, my mother's college friend Paula, who had been coming for years and who brought a green bean casserole every time without fail, and Dr. Calloway, who had become something I did not have a clean word for. Not a friend exactly, not a professional contact exactly, but a person my mother had stayed in touch with, a person who had been invited and who had come. He arrived with a bottle of sparkling cider because he still didn't drink wine, and with a card for me that said on the front, "To continued clarity," which was a phrase he used for patients navigating complex family dynamics. He had explained that to me once and I had written it down. My father shook his hand at the door. They had met twice before, both times in administrative contexts. This was the first time that shook hand had happened in a social setting, and I watched it and thought about what it cost my father to extend his hand to a man who had sat at his table and dismantled something my father had built. My father shook it firmly. He looked Dr. Calloway in the eye. That too was something. We ate dinner. The lights blinked on the tree in the corner. My heating pad was in my bag ready and nobody commented on it. My mother asked Dr. Calloway about his grandchildren. My father asked him about a medical policy question he had read about in the news, the way my father asked everyone about their professional domain, because it was his way of showing respect for expertise he didn't have. At no point did anyone raise a hand about anything. After dinner I sat in the sunroom again in the same wicker chair, with my heating pad and a cup of tea. The fern had been replaced. A small succulent sat in its place, something resilient and low maintenance, something that didn't need much and gave back quietly. My mother came in and sat across from me. She didn't say anything for a while. We watched the light on the snow through the window. Same chair, she said finally. Same chair, I said. Are you okay? I thought about it honestly, the way I had learned to think about it. Not yes as a reflex, not fine as a deflection, but actually checking the way Dr. Shenoy had taught me, running a quiet inventory of where the pain was and where the peace was and what was true right now in this moment. Yes, I said. Tonight I am. She nodded. She reached over and touched my hand once briefly, the way people touch things they are afraid to hold too long. It was enough. It was finally enough.